What they do. I am Josh Jones, ESQ, and this is Beats, Rhymes, and Crimes live. Welcome to everybody for joining us today on Beats, Rhymes, and Crimes live. We got a crazy show. We're going to definitely be talking about that Megan Thee Stallion lawsuit because that's a interesting story for the fellas. If nobody else, I'm sure you're going to want to tune in and get that full story. But before we get too deep, as always, I am Josh Jones ESQ, um, and I am coming live from the 305. Malik Ali let me know at the last second he had a work situation. As you know, he's in the music industry, and he's working on some pretty cool projects. And at the last minute, he got called in for one, so he may jump on at some point, but he's not here today. So we're gonna miss you today, Ali. And let us know where you watching from. You know what I'm saying? I see we got people on right now live. Let us know if you're watching live and where you watching from. And if you're on the replay, same thing. Like I said, I'm live from the 305. It's a lot going on in the world. There's a lot of diss tracks going back and forth in the hip hop community. Let us know where you at with that. So we're gonna start with that because one of those tracks was a track from Drake to Kendrick Lamar. So he responded to Kendrick Lamar's diss with a AI generated song featuring the voice of Tupac Shakur and Snoop Dogg. And the estate didn't seem to like that too much. So the estate is threatening legal action against Drake and his team if they don't remove the track within 24 hours of receiving a cease and desist letter. And that's something that you may see if you are doing something, if you're using somebody's intellectual property, their likeness, or something to that effect. They may send you what's called a cease and desist letter telling you to remove that. And that's what happened in this case. Drake's team received a letter from an attorney representing the estate of Tupac Shakur. The letter stated that the estate is deeply dismayed and disappointed by your unauthorized use of Tupac's voice and personality. They said not only is the record a flagrant violation of Tupac's publicity and the estate's legal rights, it is also a blatant abuse of the legacy of one of the greatest hip hop artists of all time. The estate would never have given approval for this. Another thing that they cited is that Kendrick Lamar is a good friend to the estate, and they have nothing and has given nothing but respect to Tupac and his legacy publicly, privately, and that compounds the insult. So for those of y'all that heard the track first before we even really break that down, like what did you think about it? Did you think the song was dope? Did you think it was corny for him trying to use the voices of the the 90s hip hop megastars? Let us know what you thought about it. I kind of thought it was both. It was kind of corny, you know what I'm saying? Because obviously we know that it's not endorsed by Snoop or Pac, and on Snoop's side, Snoop looked like he was bewildered. He was like, my phone started blowing up. People hitting me up. Like, I did what? I'm a part of who? You know what I'm saying? Especially knowing that they're West Coast legends, especially Snoop, all the way West Coast. And you're going to, you know what I'm saying, put him on a diss track to one of the top West Coast artists really of all time, but especially for this generation. You know what I'm saying? But the song was kind of creative. The bars were not the best bars, but they were cool. I mean, he responded. Still waiting on Kendrick to get on. You're on the clock, bro. What time you coming through with that response? You know what I'm saying? So a lot of people seem to like it, and a lot of people seem to not like it. It's kind of interesting seeing the AI being used for rap battles. Might be something that's going to become bigger and bigger. I know on larger platforms like Earn Your Leisure, they were talking about Drake having possibly a 9-figure deal with the AI company to make music, and this was a way to kind of spearhead the release of that deal. So if that's the case, I think that's kind of a smart way to kind of bring it out. But the choice of the artist is a little bit questionable to me. You know what I'm saying? So let us know who do y'all have? Do y'all think that Kendrick's up? Do you think that Drake's up? or do you think that Cole is up for even just getting out the whole thing right now? So let us know where you at with it. All right. So we had that. That was one of the stories for this week for sure. Another story, not really, part of the culture per se, but it was a big story today. So Harvey Weinstein, who, if you know, he's like a producer for a lot of big movies. Some of the bigger ones being like Kill Bill, Lord of the Rings, Scary Movie, In Too Deep, the Scream franchise, Gangs of New York, Reservoir Dogs. Those are some of the bigger movies that he was a part of, right? And he was convicted of rape back in 2020. One of the big cases that you started hearing about around the same time the whole Me Too movement really exploded. So he got 23 year sentence, and now he's like 70 something years old. And the New York Court of Appeals decided to um, overturn his conviction. And the reason that they gave was, quote, we conclude that the trial court erroneously admitted testimony of uncharged alleged prior sexual acts against persons other than the complainants of the underlying crimes because that testimony served no material non-propensity purpose. So they said the court compounded that error when it ruled that the defendant, who had no criminal history, could be cross-examined about those allegations, as well as numerous allegations of misconduct that portrayed the defendant in a highly prejudicial light. So they felt like the evidence was not relevant to the case that was before him, and that he should not have had to answer questions about it because there was no actual allegations in court about those cases. If you go back, you can find a lot of coverage of that whole Harvey Weinstein situation. I know my wife was following very closely. She was telling me about it and how overwhelmingly she was convinced by the information provided from the podcast and different things that she was listening to and reading. Obviously, media to a certain extent, especially when it's not journalism, is kind of designed to make you feel a certain type of way. So because of the person who she is, I'm sure the content that she would have been consuming would have overwhelmingly been that way. But um, there were a lot of allegations in the court, and the jury initially found him guilty. The Manhattan DA's office has said that they will do everything in their power to retry the case and remain steadfast in their commitment to survivors of sexual assault. So the court was split. It was 4-3. It was very close. It was one vote. So it wasn't like, um, you know what I'm saying? Like the court definitely felt that Harvey Weinstein should go free. It was not the case at all. So if you know anything about the Harvey Weinstein coverage, tell me what you think. Similarly, Bill Cosby was convicted, and his conviction also was overturned. So one of the things that you can see here is that cash rules everything around me. Cream, get the money. So if you have money to appeal your case, you have an opportunity. You have a shot of getting it overturned on some technicality, on some misstep by the prosecution or the judge, and you got to give it your best shot. So Tory Lanez right now is out in California. He's fighting the fight to try to get out as well. That's one of the cases we talk about all the time. He's serving 10 years for the shooting of Megan Thee Stallion. And, I'm sure he's looking at this and getting a little bit of hope. So, yeah, man. Let me know if you use TikTok. If you're on TikTok, I know we're on YouTube right now, or you may be watching this on Facebook, but if you're on TikTok, uh, let us know. If you didn't hear, the the Senate passed a bill yesterday that orders the company that owns TikTok to sell the platform in the next 270 days, or face being locked out of American market, because TikTok is a Chinese company, and the government is concerned supposedly about the Chinese government having access to the user data of Americans. So we don't know which way that's going to go. It's not that crazy. China has already banned Facebook, WhatsApp, and other platforms from people in China, they cannot access those platforms. So, you know, it's a little bit of posturing on both sides. But Soldier Boy, who claims to be the first one to do everything, right? He's saying that he makes tens of thousands of dollars a day on TikTok, and he's saying that he wants to try to buy TikTok. So he said, "quote I can't believe y'all just gonna let them ban TikTok like that, and y'all think it's funny. If they do it, this app, if they do it to this app, they can do it to any app or site. Not cool for real, y'all. We'll see later." He said, "You maybe don't see it now, but TikTok is more important than any other platform right now. That's why they're trying to ban it. Trust me." So he's saying there's a freedom of speech issue, and that he asked TikTok how much y'all want for it. He says he'll buy it. So we shall see. And yeah, and President Biden signed the bill. So this is something that's already been passed into law. We'll see what happens. But Soldier Boy certainly does not have the money to buy TikTok. But what do y'all think? Do y'all think that the government is overstepping by banning a social media platform in what is supposed to be the land of the free? Let us know. Let us know. You know what I'm saying? So yeah. What else we got? We've been talking Diddy. Told you that he wouldn't stop. So the news is also just not gonna stop. So Diddy, if you watched maybe a month or so ago, they had the raids, and one of his, I guess you could say his entourage member, but they've been calling him his mule, because he's been supposedly the person who's responsible for carrying drugs in for Diddy. But Brendan Paul entered into a plea deal in Miami-Dade County for his cocaine possession charge. Um, and they dropped one of the charges for possession of a controlled substance. As you know, he was arrested at the small airport in Opelika, which is a small city in Miami-Dade County, where they have a private airport. So he was arrested there last month. And that's pretty much it. So for right now, he's still listed in the lawsuit by Lil Rod, who's suing Diddy. And that case is going to just keep picking up and picking up. And more information is going to keep coming out about Diddy, because it's one of the biggest stories right now, probably in legal, um, news in the legal media. So yeah, we got that. And Neo, man, what you doing, bro? We we know it don't always work out in these relationships, man. But Neo is facing some allegations from his ex-girlfriend Sade Bagnaris regarding the physical assault and irresponsible parenting. So she went live yesterday on Instagram, and she says that Neo body slammed her. She says that he had drugs and prostitutes in the house while their two young sons were there. And then she said, quote, "Tell them about the freak off, Diddy Jr." Taunting her ex-boyfriend as he plays a video game. So she's calling Neo Diddy Jr. So yeah, so no charges yet for that, but we'll be following it. They've got a paternity suit going on, and there's going to be a lot more. She is looking for child support and custody of the kids, and that's going to just be another Hollywood divorce type situation, like we talk about. So we'll keep checking into it. Neo's out here living his best life since he did get a divorce, and hopefully people are learning that everything is recorded. You cannot be out here wilding out like in the old days, right? So let's talk about it. Megan Thee Stallion has made the news. because Emilio Garcia, who was a photographer, sued her. It's a workplace harassment, wrongful termination lawsuit. But he was a photographer. He was working with her over in I think it said Ibiza, but Ibiza, Spain. And while working with her over there, he says that they were riding in an SUV, and just out the blue, it was four women and him. And Meg Thee Stallion and one of the women started having sex right next to him. And he said he couldn't get out. There was nothing he could do. And it made him feel very uncomfortable. I know a lot of the guys was like talking about it. And they was like, man, what is you doing? So anyway, some people thought he might have been showing off. But this was around June 2022. So this was like a couple years after she got shot. So, this is a interesting case. We got the complaint. I'm going to go ahead. I'll share it. Share. So let's see. So interestingly, this case was filed, as you can see right here, by this organization, West Coast Trial Lawyers. They're the same ones suing Lizzo. So I don't know what the issue is. I don't know if they find all the cases involving women performers, and they're suing women performers, but it seems to be a pattern. In California, this is the way the complaints look. So they tell you right on the first page all of the different charges. So this is Emilio Garcia. It is against Rock Nation, who manages Meg Thee Stallion, Hot Girl Touring, the touring company. Megan Thee Stallion Entertainment, another company. Megan Thee Stallion, an individual. And then they always say those 1 through 10 inclusive, in the event that there's more defendants that they find out about later on. So these are the charges: hostile work environment, harassment, failure to prevent and remedy, violation of the labor code. So they're talking about misclassification. That's another thing. A lot of times people think that they can get around having to pay people as employees, which makes you have to pay for the employment taxes, benefits, etc., by classifying everybody as an independent contractor. But everybody does not qualify to be an independent contractor. We could talk about that at a later time. What you have to do in order to be able to really do that appropriately. But another violation of the labor code, talking about meal and rest breaks, violation of the labor code for unpaid overtime, violation of the labor code for inaccurate wage statements, violation of the labor code for waiting time penalties, violation of the labor code, and violation of California business and professional code. So it is definitely important, especially when you're someone with that much business about you. Like, talk about $1 million corporation. You know what I'm saying? Megan Thee Stallion is a $1 million corporation. She actually literally incorporated that name. And then there's a touring company, and then there's Rock Nation. These are huge companies. You want to make sure that you have counsel that can appropriately advise you on how to follow the law, right? So that you can avoid lawsuits like this, which you can never really avoid them, but you can prevent them as much as possible. So we're not going to go through the whole thing. As you can see at the bottom, this is 42 pages. But we'll go down to the factual allegations. We talked about it. On or around July 20th, 2022, plaintiff was traveling on tour with Stallion in Ibiza. After a night out, Stallion and 3 other women were riding in an SUV together. Suddenly, Stallion and one of the other women started having sex right beside the plaintiff. Plaintiff could not get out of the car. It was both moving, and he was in the middle of nowhere in a foreign country. Plaintiff was embarrassed, mortified, and offended throughout the whole ordeal. Fellas, are those the words that you would have used to describe yourself in that situation if you were the plaintiff? I know it's probably would catch me off guard. I would say that, to say the least. But anyway, the following day, Stallion inquired whether the plaintiff was in the SUV the previous night. Dang, how she don't even know if you in the SUV and you said next to her? So he said he was, and then she instructed him, quote, "Don't ever discuss what you saw." She berated and directed her fat shaming comments towards the plaintiff, such as "fat bitch," "spit your food out," and "you don't need to be eating." So even after having been shot and going through all of the online harassment, bullying, whatever you want to call it, the plaintiff is alleging that Megan Thee Stallion was not a kind person to him. So I don't know if you believe that or don't believe that, but that is what is being alleged. All right. So um, let's see. So then he's confided in a makeup artist and learned of the plaintiff's contemplation. So after confiding in the makeup artist, Stallion learned of the plaintiff's contemplation of quitting due to possessiveness combined with lack of appropriate pay for the amount of time asked of him. So later that night, Stallion drunkenly FaceTimed the plaintiff, and after plaintiff expressed his belief he was being underpaid for the amount of hours actually asked of him, they reached an understanding, with Stallion affirming, "We're good." Despite the conversation, plaintiff remains scheduled for Stallion's upcoming gig the following Friday. So even though they came to that agreement on around June 2023, Roc Nation reached out to the plaintiff the night before the scheduled Friday gig and informed him that he was no longer going to be needed. He filed this complaint after getting a right to sue letter on April 12th, 2024. So a lot of times what happens is before a lawsuit is filed, you make a report to the government agency. So in this case, whether it would be the EEOC, Equal Opportunity Commission, which is on the federal level, or then there's also the state level. Usually there's like a local equivalent. So you would make a complaint, and they would give you what's called a right to sue letter. So they will look at your complaint and decide whether they believe there's enough validity to it so that you can move forward and file a lawsuit. So he's got a wage and hour violations that he's claiming. So here you can see on multiple occasions, Stallion explicitly directed the plaintiff not to engage with other clients, expressing possessiveness over the plaintiff's services as her personal cameraman. So if you're restricting his ability to make money in outside ways, there is a strong argument that he is not an independent contractor, which is what they were labeling him as, but actually an employee of your company. Hostile work environment in violation of the FEHA, which is the Fair Employment and Housing Act in California. So they said that the defendant's conduct created a hostile work environment, making the conditions of his employment intolerable in direct contravention of various statutes and state law decisions. So then they go out and they list them. And they talk about when he began working as a personal cameraman in 2018. And then they talk about how he was traveling with her in Ibiza. And they kind of repeat some of the stuff we talked about. And he says that he suffered and continues to suffer general and special damages, not limited to losses in wages, other employee benefits, maybe health insurance. He says he suffered physical injuries and sickness, emotional distress from having two women have sex right next to him. And then I imagine probably also from being called a fat bitch who does not need to eat food as well. And then they go through all of the different causes of action. So there's, like I said, there are like 8 or 9 causes of action, and they go through the violations for each one. So let's see. So failure to prevent and remedy harassment. So not only did they harass him, but they didn't stop the harassment. You can't just go on and on harassing somebody. Um, and when it happens, it says that an employer is strictly liable for the harassment conditions of its agents and supervisors. So that means that automatically, once it happens, they're liable. It doesn't matter why it happened. It's strict. It's strict. The liability, the responsibility for what happened is strict. There's no rationale that can, you know, show why there's a reasonable reason for them allowing that to happen or not knowing about it. So they repeat themselves quite a bit with the story about what happened in Ibiza. This is a violation of the labor code, misclassification, talking about being an independent contractor versus an employee. Um, there's a test that requires an employer to show why someone should be an independent contractor. So, A, the worker is free from control and direction of the hiring entity in performing the work, both under the contract and for the performance of the work and in fact. So, one of the things is if somebody has to do what you say when you say do it, or they have to use your equipment, or if there's, you know, certain things that you have put in place as a requirement for them, then that's an indicator that they may not be independent. B, the worker performs that the worker performs work that is outside the usual course of the hiring entity's business. So, you know, these late night work sessions, traveling overseas, you know, certain things like that could potentially be things that would show that the worker performs work that's um, that of an employee, not of an independent contractor. And then C, the worker is customarily engaged in an independently established trade, occupation, or business of the same nature as the work performed for the hiring entity. So it's tough to know. There's so many things. People are hiring people now. They're talking about the gig worker law that was passed a few years back in California. Um, but the court has to, you know, rule on this. The jury will decide um, whether or not the plaintiff was an employee or independent. So so they state that for all relevant times, Stallion controls and dictates plaintiff's work environment. So he can't just go say, "Oh no, I'm going to go to the studio and do the work over there." She's saying where he has to work. For all relevant times, Stallion controls and directs work performance of plaintiff who manage no people. So he's doesn't have a company with staff and whatever. He works at the behest of Meg Thee Stallion. As a personal cameraman, plaintiff was forced to take on a myriad of duties and work much longer hours. So he says he worked in excess of 50 hours under the close scrutiny and explicit discretion of Stallion, who continuously contacted the plaintiff at all hours, directing him to brainstorm TikTok videos, to edit the content, and complete various assignments. What do y'all think? Does this sound like somebody who is an independent contractor, or does it sound like somebody who is an employee um, of Meg Thee Stallion? I'm curious to see what y'all think. For all relevant times, Stallion controls and directs the performance of plaintiff's work who does not provide personal cameraman services independently of his relationship with Stallion. After all, how could he when he was constantly working to satisfy the demands of Stallion? So he was pretty much always working for it. He was paid a $4,000 flat rate per month. Jesus, under $50,000 a year to be on, basically working around the clock for Megan Thee Stallion. Is what they're alleging. So then, August 22, he altered his compensation structure from monthly to pay per task system, and then he invoiced for each assignment. So even though the pay structure changed, he says that he was still required to provide and be accountable for the same level of service. So um, he was still working a lot. So he says now he's earning significantly less because the invoice amounts do not accurately reflect the true time and effort dedicated to working. So he told her directly not to engage with other clients. So if he's independent, can you tell him that? I don't think you should. I don't think that's gonna fly. But essentially, he worked for her. It sounds like it pretty clearly. Like he's working for Megan Thee Stallion. So he claims that for rest break violations, waiting time penalties, and failure to issue accurate itemized wage statements due to misclassification are claims for non-payment of wages. And they even said there's a provision that allows for them to collect attorney's fees under the California law. So meal and rest periods during all times mentioned in this complaint. Um, they violated that code, which requires employers to comply with all Industrial Welfare Commission wage orders and governing meal and rest periods. And I'm going to say this too: California is one of the most plaintiff-friendly states. They've got a lot of consumer laws that um, are in place to ensure like fairness to people, and not just for companies and corporations like you'll see in a lot of places. So I mean, it does not surprise me that they have all these laws. They may not have quite as many laws wherever you live to protect people. All states have some laws, but California is usually on another level. So the law states that employers must provide at least 30 minutes of meal periods for every 5 hours of work, and another 30-minute period if the work period is 10 hours or more. And that employees must be given at least a 10-minute rest period for every 4 hours of major fraction thereof. So people in California get breaks. So I don't know how it is at your job. Let me know. Does your job allow for you to take 10-minute break for every 4 hours beyond your lunch break? Plaintiff was not paid meal or rest break premiums. So I'm not sure that the law said they must be paid. So I think these are paid periods of time too. It's not just must be given time off, but employees must be paid. So if she's not listing him as an employee, then she's not paying him. So unpaid overtime, kind of the same rationale. There's a lot of time that they're not giving him credit for, so he's not being paid fair wages. And we'll skip over to the end. We're not gonna drag it, but essentially, they're asking for unpaid wages at the prevailing legal rate, unpaid wages at overtime wage rates, statutory penalties according to the law, whatever those may be, restitution of unpaid wages and prejudgment interest from the day such amounts were due and payable, punitive damages, which is to punish for the conduct, not for anything that was actually owed to the plaintiff. Costs incurred by the plaintiff, including attorney's fees, the cost for bringing the suit, and things of that nature, and any other relief the court deems just and proper. Suit was just brought to us 3 days ago, April 22nd, by, like I said, Ronald Zambrano, who's also the attorney for at least one of the young ladies suing Lizzo. So, I mean, knowing what you know now, let me know if you're looking to get a job working with Megan Thee Stallion. I don't see nobody in the chat. Okay, I'm just gonna wait a second. I know y'all probably getting ready for that. All right. So we are now at what, the Florida, and this is one of those like only in Florida type situations. Uh, but there was a man who I guess I could show you. I don't know, even want to tell you. I'm not even going to try to tell you. But what the Florida's going on, man? That's why people be talking about us as it is. What? Whoa. Police was like, you got it. Brothers and sisters on the side, like, nah, we gonna record this. We gonna, yeah. So if you didn't believe what you saw, here we go. Close the thing. So you close it, pull it up. And heck, nah, he got that all by himself. What the Florida? Only in the FLA. Gotta love it. So that's the end of the show, y'all. We're about to be up out of here. So let us know if there's anything that we could ever that we could talk about. You know what I'm saying? There's always stories going on, stuff that people want to know about. And we want to cover what you want to know. So like, subscribe, follow us, send us DMs, all of that stuff. And we'll holla at you. Oh, just playing. So we got a special guest today.
And we have a special today.
Hey, what's up, buddy? It's take your kids to work day. So I got my little man in here. Say hi.
Hi.
Say what's up.
What's up?
Anything you want to say to the people on YouTube?
Okay.
You want to do any math?
Okay.
No. What's 9 times 9?
Equals 81.
Say peace.
Peace. Oh no, on the pants.